So I left you with a little bit of cliffhanger in the last video. What we did was we typed in the body and we typed in the background color blue-violet, but when we previewed it, it didn't look like anything. So we want to actually make sure that works. Now, similar to what we did is we linked to an HTML file here, we linked to an image file here in our HTML. We need to tell this HTML file to go find this CSS document, right? Because just because they're next to each other doesn't mean they have anything to do with each other right now, because we haven't told this HTML file about this CSS file. Okay, now we're going to do something called an external style sheet, and that's what we're working on. There are other kinds out there, but we're not really going to talk about them at this point. But an external style sheet, we're going to put a return, we're going to put it right in between after the title and the close of the head. So we're going to put it right here. So what we need to do is type in HTML a link, so this is the tag or the element, and a space, and this is an attribute, href, the equals quotes. Now we're going to pick that style, right? And we're going to type in a few other ones. There's a rel that we need to have, and it's called a style sheet, and then another space and a type and text.css, right? Now the last thing we need to make sure we do is put a greater than sign. So I'm going to kind of move this around so you can see it a little bit better, right? So we just wrote that part there though, okay? So what that just did, what that line 6 does, it tells this HTML file to, hey, go out and find this style.css file and apply any of those styles that are selecting elements inside of this page. Yeah. So if we save this and we jump back into our live preview, we should start to see that purple violet, whatever it is, blue violet, and that's not a good color, right? But that's okay. We know that it works. What that tells us, this thing works, right? We know it's going to do something, and that is what we needed to know at this point. Okay? Now, I'm going to flip back into brackets, and now that we know this works, we can just start cranking out CSS, right? And all we're going to do for Web Module 1 is we're just going to apply a font size and a font color and an overall font for the actual page. Okay? So before we go too far, I don't like blue violet. You can select whatever color you want. I'm going to type in what's called a hexadecimal. And this is the color that's in the screenshot for the assignment, but whatever you like there. Now the cool thing is brackets, again, it's a web editor, so it allows you to do more here. You can kind of see if you hover over it, you get that little color. If you hit Command E or Control E, it pops up a color picker, which is super helpful. Then you can kind of pick whatever you want, right? So it's up to you however you want to do this. There's hex, there's RGB, but whatever you pick there is totally cool. I'm going to leave it at this, okay? So I have a background color, and that's cool, okay? If I switch over to the live preview, you can kind of see it's not annoying purple anymore. It's kind of this like muted blue is what I'll call it, okay? Now, before the body, I'm going to add a space here, and I'm going to set the font for the entire page to be a sans serif font, right? Now I could go through and select all the H1s and H2s and all that kind of stuff, but what I want to do is actually select everything, okay? And it's called a universal selector, and the universal selector is just an asterisk, so Shift 8, and then we do our brackets just like what we do. So that's a universal selector, and we are going to pick the font family as sans serif, right? And if we save that and we go and make sure we click on the about, right? And we flip over to our live preview, you see now the font is a sans serif font, and that's cool, right? So we're starting to control what this thing looks like. And now it's just a lot of back and forth. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to write H1 and H2 in our paragraphs, and we're going to select everything and give it a font size and a font color. Okay. So after the body, we're going to select the H1s, right? Which is, there's only one. And this is selecting, if we see our HTML, this is selecting all the H1s, which we only have one. We're going to select the H1. We're going to close off our brackets. We're going to tell the font size to be 2.5 ems. Now I'm going to come back and talk about that in Web 2. Just know that's like inches or pixels or points. It's just a unit of measurement. And then we're going to pick a color. And I'm going to pick kind of a dark color. So again, you kind of pick whatever sounds cool. This dim gray might be cool, so let's try that. Okay. Now instead of like writing that out 3 more times, I'm going to copy and paste it twice. I'm going to change the second one to H2. I'm going to change the font size to 2 ems. I'm going to keep the dim gray, which is cool. And then I'm going to change this one to paragraphs, right? And change this to 1 em. Now if we save this and we flip back over to HTML and then go to our live preview that we've been working at, okay? We're starting to see something that looks like what we need to turn in for Web Module 1, okay? We have sans serif fonts. We have this color going on. It's not obnoxious. It kind of works all together. You know, it's starting to set a tone for the style that we want to convey for our particular personality or our brand. Now the one thing though is not right is these are black, right? So our unordered list is black. So we need to make sure we get that selected as well. Okay, so we're going to step back into brackets and kind of figure out why that is. Okay, and this is the part that no one tells you about with web design, is if everything works, that's great, but then if one thing doesn't, you have to figure out why. Okay, and if you think about what we're doing, we have these selectors selecting different HTML tags, and they're called element selectors, so they're selecting an HTML element inside our HTML. And if we look at what we have here, we have H1, H2, paragraphs, H1, H2, paragraphs, H2, but now we have an unordered list, right? So we haven't styled our unordered list, right? We've styled everything else, but we don't have anything saying anything about an unordered list, right? So we could copy and paste the paragraph because we want it to be the same size and color as a paragraph, and change this to unordered list, and that works just fine. But what is smarter, and this is like pretty much what coding is how you can do things more efficiently. There's a way to group paragraphs and unordered lists. Okay, so we delete that and we go to paragraph and put a comma, unordered list, and comma, ordered list while we're at it. Ordered list is just numbered list, 1, 2, 3, 4, and unordered list is bullets. Once we do that, we're essentially saying that paragraphs, unordered lists, and ordered lists are all going to be this style. Now the comma is really important in this particular case. If it's not there, it means something totally different we're going to talk about in Web 2. But for now, this groups everything together so it uses one font size and color. So if we didn't like dim gray for our font color, we could change it once and be on our way. So if we tried beige for whatever reason, right? So now we have beige, and that looks bad, right? So we're going to change it back to that dim gray. Save that. Now we look at it. Now we got our unordered lists in bullets, and everything's looking pretty solid. Okay, so in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about how we can size an image using a class, and then the last video we'll be talking about validation.